Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Beautiful, powerful, soulful, high value woman. I'm so excited to be back here today for day 2 of our 3 days of high value activations. I'm feeling really, really pumped up and excited to share what I have to share with you today because it is going to massively shift your perspective and your capacity to be more and hold more in your business and in your life in general. Okay, so I'm here to bring you those high vibes again today to increase your passion, your purpose, and your profit so that you can start to live more in your joy and more in your bliss and also feel really freaking good the whole way as you rise, as you find your success, no matter where you are right now. I want you to know, um, as I said yesterday, it's okay to be where you are right now, and people need you where you are right now. Okay, so today I want to start off by just doing a quick recap of the most important aspects of yesterday's talks because there's 3 things that you need to know. This is the foundation of changing your vibration, and anything that you're going to do to try and level up, this is what you need to know to help you to get there. Okay, and that is that your energetic vibration is influenced by your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. That's a really, really, really important thing to understand. Okay, so when we understand this, then we have the basis, we have the methodology, we have the roadmap that we can use to change our vibration at any time. Okay, it empowers us to change our vibration at absolutely any time. So it's really that simple. And it's this very, very simple understanding that forms the basis of this whole 3-day event, because we absolutely cannot change our vibration without first getting really intimate with these aspects of our consciousness, okay, with our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So I wanted to remind you of this today because I want to take you even deeper into an embodied experience of the power of this teaching, this really simple teaching, okay? And in order to do that, I have to speak about the 2 ways that I see 99% of spiritual entrepreneurs seriously self-sabotaging themselves in their business. Okay, so I want to just name them, I want to bring them out, and I have not only seen this in my own life, in my own experience, but I've also seen it working with hundreds of different people as I've helped them to develop their brands and step out into their soul-fulfilling businesses. So these are the 2 ways that I see people most self-sabotaging, okay? And they are the 2 things that almost become like a huge elephant in the room that everybody knows is there, but we don't want to look at it, and it's kind of awkward. Okay, um, and these 2 things are our money and our exposure. Have you ever noticed how awkward it can sometimes get when we're talking about these subjects? You know, when we're talking about how much money we're making or we want to make, or we're wanting to step out more and allow ourselves to be seen more, but it's, there's a belief system that we've adopted around these ideas, right? We've developed the belief that to have money or to want it or to focus on it is unspiritual. And the same thing is true for our exposure, because we don't actually want to allow ourselves to be seen because we think that that makes us full of ourselves, and that's not spiritual, that's ego. How often do you hear people talking about, acting from their ego? And yes, that's an important thing to understand and to acknowledge, is the ego self, the side that just wants to be recognized and just wants fame and fortune. But there's a distinction between, not wanting those things and actually completely blocking our flow of abundance and blocking our ability to be seen, and the way that we allow ourselves to be seen. Okay, now these are two things that as I say, like, I've struggled with myself. I know how it feels. I've seen the ins and outs of it, and I've been on both sides. Okay, so I know that there's also a really fine line. There's a fine line between wanting money and allowing ourselves to be exposed, and being greedy and being egotistical. Okay, but the problem is that because we adopt these beliefs, we self-sabotage our brands and our businesses, because the vibration, being the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions that we have around our finances and our exposure, becomes tainted with a whole range of different feelings, from shame to guilt to insecurity to even imposter syndrome. Okay, that's a big one as well. We feel like, who am I to be showing myself in this way? Okay, imposter syndrome is huge when it comes to blocking our exposure. So what happens as a result is that we keep playing small. We don't allow ourselves to be fully seen or to fully show up for our life purpose. And as a result of that, what happens is that we also end up sabotaging our income, and we earn very inconsistently, and we don't prioritize our finances. As I say, it becomes that elephant in the room, that it's there, it's a big deal, it's something that's always sort of on our minds, but we don't want to focus too much on it, because that makes us greedy. We don't want money too much, because that way, that's just not spiritual. Okay, so if this sounds like you right now, and if you've adopted these beliefs about money and exposure, I want to help you shift out of that today and into an expanded view of how money and exposure can be really, really good for not only your business and your brand and your bank account, but also in actually helping us to live our life purpose, and helping us to serve, and even helping us to be better people. Okay, so that brings me to our seed thought for day number 2. Okay, now just a reminder again, every day I'm going to be sharing with you a seed thought. Then I'm going to be unpacking that seed thought. I'm going to be giving you a new perspective. Okay, and then I'm going to give you an activation, or an action that you can go and do to start to ground this new understanding and integrate that into your life. Okay, so seed thought number 2 is, the more money you make and the more visible you become, the easier you'll be able to serve your life purpose. Okay, the more money you make and the more visible you become, the easier you'll be able to serve your life purpose. Now, I want you to really just tune into the energetics of that, because it's highly likely that if you are currently still processing from those self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors that money and exposure is unspiritual, that you'll immediately feel a resistance to what I'm saying, and it will look like a statement that comes from a place of ego or greed. Okay? The more money you make and the more visible you become, the easier you will be able to serve your life purpose. That can easily look like somebody who's greedy, or who's just wanting more, or who's just wanting that fame and that fortune. Okay, but that's that little inner voice inside of our head that's telling us that we can't have these things, because it doesn't make us spiritual. It makes us bad people. It makes us greedy. Okay, so if that was your reaction, then I want you to know that that's 100% okay, because that's exactly what we want to shift today. So if that's coming up, then it's a really good and positive thing, because it means it's ready to be shifted, or you're ready to now take that leap into a new way of thinking, a new way of relating to money, to exposure, to your own inner sense of security, your own inner sense of high value. Okay, so take a moment to just really honor and acknowledge that part of you that thinks and feels in this way. It's really important to really allow ourselves to be and feel the things that we be and feel sometimes. Okay, because often when we're trying to do the healing work or process something, it's like we tend to sometimes bypass the importance of actually sitting in that feeling and talking to it, being okay with it, treating it like you would treat a child, you know, welcoming it, because it is a part of you. And if it's a part of you, then that's what makes you who you are. It's only been there to protect you in some other way. Okay, so I want to get into that a bit later, how this has actually been benefiting you. But just really honor that right now. Because the thing is that this self-sabotaging pattern, it actually comes from a really humble place. Okay? And I believe that it's really necessary to integrate that into our awareness instead of getting rid of it. Because if we were the richest person on the planet, that doesn't mean that we would be happy or we would be serving our life purpose. Okay? It's the humbleness that comes with that wealth that keeps us grounded and centered, and that becomes our true source of happiness. Okay? When we can balance that wealth, that exposure with a sense of humbleness, a sense of purpose, a sense of integrity, a sense of intention, that's how we begin to anchor that and actually feel the joy, the true joy of what this money and this exposure can really gift us with. And that is the ability to serve our life purpose, right? So we aren't trying to bypass it or get rid of that humbleness. We want to actually keep that humbleness, but we want to just expand our perception so that we can start to see things in a new way and no longer be sabotaging ourselves in the process. Okay? So we don't want to be sabotaging ourselves. We want to just increase our perception beyond those limitations so that we can bring our humbleness into the money, into the exposure. Okay, so let's just go into shifting your mindset a little bit around this. And so, first of all, I want you to consider three things. Okay, number one, abundance is your natural state of being. It's your most natural state of being. Number two, being embodied in your truest and most authentic nature is all that you need to magnetize all the exposure that is right for you and serving your purpose. So all that it takes to allow yourself to be more exposed and be more seen is to be more in your authenticity. It's to accept yourself more for who you are, to allow yourself to be imperfect, you know. And number three is that you are actually the only one. You're the only one, the only thing that's getting in the way of you having more money and being more seen than you are right now. Okay? We want to become really accountable and accept that we are responsible for our lives, right? So we are the only things that are actually getting in the way of us having more abundance and being more exposed because of the energetics behind what we feel around these two things. Okay, because of that mindset that money and exposure is unspiritual, what we've created for ourselves is a block in our abundance and a block in our ability to be seen. Okay, so there's absolutely nothing outside of ourselves that has the power to block our abundance and our exposure. It's 100% to do with our energy. Okay, it's 100% to do with our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions towards those things. So we're the ones who block ourselves and what we want, and it's because we don't actually believe that we're worthy of it, or that it's possible to really create that for ourselves. Okay, it all comes down to that. It all comes down to our inner beliefs, our patterns, the patterns that we were brought up on, that were modeled to us, that we didn't really necessarily choose. It's all that we knew. Okay, so what I'm doing today is giving you a new mindset so that you can start to choose a new way of thinking, so that you no longer play out in those self-sabotaging behaviors, and you can rather expand yourself. And in expanding yourself, your exposure will expand and your bank balance will expand, because you're no longer limiting yourself with your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, with those deeply ingrained beliefs that money and exposure is unspiritual. It's, makes me egotistical. Okay, so I want to just share with you a quick story to give you a good example of what I'm talking about. Okay, when I first started my business, I started really, really small, and I was just a freelancer, so I was only working small projects and barely making much money, which was fine because I was still studying at the time. But at that same time, as I was studying, I was starting my business, my mom moved overseas and I started living by myself for the first time. Okay, so I was living completely independently and looking after myself. And my mom was still supporting me financially here and there, but I started taking on a lot more responsibility for, my monthly payments and all the rest. Okay, and so all of a sudden I started having all of these monthly expenses, but my business was still small. I still wasn't earning that much income, and my income was quite inconsistent, because money was not a priority for me at that point. I was focusing on varsity, and I wasn't really worried. But I started to become worried about money when I had all these expenses every month. And then on top of that, I hated asking my mom for money. I just hated it. I felt like, well, I'm dependent now. It's my responsibility to look after myself. I can't ask my mom for money anymore. I can't rely on anybody else. Can't rely on my parents anymore. I'm an adult now. Okay? And what happened is that my nervous system went into complete survival mode, and I was constantly stressed, constantly worrying, constantly just trying to figure out how I'm going to pay whatever I need to pay. So, in a sense, I was focused on money, but my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions were, oh, I don't have enough. Oh, how am I going to get enough? Oh, how am I going to do this? And as a result, my actions were then influenced by those thoughts, right? So, as a result, um, I started to work with anybody and everybody who wanted to work with me. I would take on every single project that I would get, because how could I turn away a project if I was barely making it through the month? Okay, and so I was acting almost from a space of desperation, from a space of panic, like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this. Okay, and I'm sure you can feel that, like, your whole nervous system contracts, like you tense up. And that's what was happening for me. I was tensing up, and that energy was actually blocking more money flowing into my life. Okay, that contraction, that stress, the actions that were happening as a result of that stress, those thoughts, those feelings, and those actions. So I spent most of my time overworked, burnt out, working really long hours, and actually making really little income. Now, I always had the belief that I would have everything I needed as I needed it, and that Spirit or God was supporting me. And that is exactly what happened. But it happened through a lot of stress and chaos that didn't need to be there. Okay? So I was making it through, at the end of the month, and if I needed money, my mom was there to support me or whatever. So I was never, homeless or whatever. Like, I always had everything I needed, but I was constantly stressed about it. And that was the energy that I was cultivating around my finances. And I had absolutely no accountability or responsibility or anything around my finances. Okay, it's almost like I just left it up to God, left it up to Spirit, and said, you do all the work. I'll just sit here and panic. Okay, and that really created a huge sense of disharmony in my life and in my finances. Okay, so this is where I want to point out to you the absolute vital importance of actually caring about your money and having financial goals and setting yourself up for success every month. Because when we don't care about our money, we don't call in more money for ourselves, then we get stuck in that survival mode. Okay? And we'll always be stuck in that cycle of stress and burnout and fear. However, when you do become aware of your money, now, because money is a priority for me, I spend time every single month going through my finances, getting really clear on what's going in and out of my account, setting financial goals, getting really, really close and intimate with my finances. It's like my whole nervous system has been able to relax because I actually know, I have an awareness of what's coming in and out of my account every month. I can then plan better. I can be smarter. I can be more conscious with my money. When I'm setting financial goals, I'm calling in more money to myself. I'm saying, hey, look, I'm being responsible with what I have now. I'm ready for more. I'm ready for more. I'm ready for more. Okay. And that creates a whole energy dynamic shift. All right. So then my thoughts become a lot more expanded. My thoughts are orientated on my goals, orientated on what is a possibility for me, what I'm creating. And therefore my feelings are influenced by that. I'm pumped up about it. I'm excited about it. And then my actions are influenced by that. I start investing in the right things. I start saving in the right way. I start paying off my debt. I start becoming a lot more responsible. Do you see the huge shift in energy, the dynamic that changes when we get our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions in the right space? Okay? So now what happens is, from this space, I can show up for my life purpose. I can create for people. I can work with people from a place of pleasure, of joy, of excitement, and of passion about what I do. Instead of being in survival mode and acting from desperation, I'm acting from expansion. I'm acting from pleasure. Okay? And I add 1,000,000 times more value into what I'm doing because of that. All right? So at the same time, this very same concept now applies to our exposure, okay? Because I also used to hate showing up online. I hated social media. I hated them, and I hated the thought of being online and being silly and trying to sell people what I'm offering, okay? It felt really egotistical to me. It felt like, I was just full of myself, and I hated that idea of being salesy or pushy, okay? I'm sure you can relate to this. If you're a soulful entrepreneur, it's because you never want to feel salesy or pushy, okay? But what happened as a result of me hating social media, not wanting to be salesy and pushy, like the exact opposite of what I wanted happened, okay? Because I had these thoughts, these feelings, and these actions, I never showed up online. Okay. However, I was still launching a business. I was still doing the work. And so every time I wanted to run an event, I had to use the online platforms. I had to use my social media. I had to put it out there. And then guess what? The only time I was showing up on social media I was being pushy and I was being salesy, which is the exact opposite of what I wanted. Okay, so it's like I completely shot myself in the foot because I ended up doing the very thing that I didn't want to do. Okay, but when I had a mindset shift around this, when I started to understand that showing up online more was actually, it was not to be salesy or pushy, but it was a way that I could add value. It was a way that I could show up for, anybody and everybody who came into contact with what I was sharing. And that showed me that I could naturally, just organically sell what I needed to sell. Then I had this huge paradigm shift, and those thoughts then started affecting my feelings towards social media. I started to become excited about it. I started to get pumped up about it. And as a result, I started selling my programs and my offerings organically, without being salesy, just by showing up and adding value and being myself. Okay, so that's the paradigm shift that we want to have. You want to change your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions to be more aligned to that, so that you don't have to be salesy, you don't have to be pushy, you don't have to be egotistical. You just have to be yourself. Okay, so because my energy changed, my vibration changed, and I started to attract something like a whole new reality. Okay, so be really honest with yourself right now and ask yourself if your fear of money and exposure is actually doing you good, or if it's creating the exact opposite reality of what you're wanting because you're actually self-sabotaging yourself. And as I say, it's okay. It's okay to be self-sabotaging. It's okay to have these thoughts and these patterns and these beliefs that aren't serving us, because for a very long time they have served us. Okay? They've taught us humbleness. They've taught us integrity. They've taught us, that our intention is more important than how much we make. And those are really good things that we want to take into our expansion, but we don't want to get stuck there. Okay. So now, your action for today, just before we end off, to really ground this new understanding in, to ground what I've shared with you here today, is that I want you to think back to a time in your life where you felt so in your joy and in your bliss that you weren't worrying about money, you weren't worrying about anything. You were just so authentically yourself. Okay? You felt supported, you just fully were out of that survival mode, and you're just living in your bliss and serving your purpose from your bliss. Have you ever had a time like this in your life? Okay? And I want you to reflect on that time and ask yourself, what happened during that time? How did your finances, how did your money respond to that energy? Okay? And for me, what happens when I'm in this space is that money just pours into me. Money comes. It's free. I don't need to worry about it. Okay, so reflect on that. Ask yourself, is that true for you? And if it's not yet true for you, then I want you to go and test that out. I want you to test that out. I want you to spend just one day, not stressing about money, not stressing about anything, just asking yourself, how can I just show up fully for my purpose today? How can I just show up fully for myself, for spirit, for God, for whatever is wanting to be birthed through me? How can I show up fully for that and not even worry about the money? Okay? And then take action on that and see what happens. And then in terms of your exposure, I want you to do the same thing. Okay? Have you ever felt that there was a time in your life where you were carefree? You weren't worried about what other people were thinking about you. You were just showing up as yourself. You were just excited to be you, excited to be alive. Okay? And what happened during that time? Because what should happen is that during those times, that's actually when you get the most compliments. That's when you get the most recognized. Because you're not acting from that desperation or from that neediness, okay? You're just acting from your authentic self. And that, people feel that energy. They feel that vibration. Okay, so if this is not yet true for you, if you have not yet experienced this, then again, I want you to go and experiment. I want you to test it out for one day. Just be 100% yourself. Stop caring what other people think about you. Stop basing yourself, your life, or your words, or your actions on what you think other people want from you, and just be you. Just be so freaking you that, there's no space in between you right now and the person that you want to be. Just be that and embody that and see what happens. Okay. So that's it for today. I want to leave you with that seed thought again. The more money you make and the more visible you become, the easier you'll be able to serve your life purpose. Okay? Because when we make more money, when we call in more money to ourselves, when we're more expanded, our nervous system relaxes, we're not acting from desperation, we're just showing up 100% in our purpose. We don't just take on a million different clients, we work with one focused, streamlined target audience. And we say no to the rest. Because those people are only going to scatter your energy, right? However, when you're working with one ideal client, when you're working with one type of person, or when you're really clear and focused and streamlined, when you're laser focused, then you get to show up in 100% of your energy for that. Okay. And the same thing with your exposure. When you can just be yourself, 100% yourself, then you just magnetically attract the clients that you need to work with, the money that you need to make your life happen. Okay, so this is how, when we make more money and we become more visible, our life becomes easier and we're able to serve our life purpose a lot easier. Okay, so thank you for tuning in today. I will see you again tomorrow, and just wishing you all the best for your day. Beautiful.